Let's try an experiment. I'll show you a poster, a plot synopsis, and a couple visual sequences from Walker, and you form an impression of what the film is like. In 1987's Walker, William Walker and his mercenary corps enter Nicaragua in the middle of the 19th century in order to install a new government by a coup d'etat. You might get the impression that the film is a period piece, a Western, a film about a man driven by the forces of colonialism to evil, and you would be correct. But there are certain expectations we have of that sort of film, ways in which we would assume the film will operate. So let's play some clips back one more time for some more context.
Men would rather die first.
By expanding, can we hope to avoid a civil war and save those institutions we hold most dear?
I assume you're including slavery?
Now, you may have noticed that the music in these clips creates some sort of dissonance. In this case of the second clip, maybe more than one type. We have a bloody battle scene, but it's got this somewhat stereotypical Spanish-flavored music under it, which sounds like it's having some fun. Then, under what we assume to be a very formal, serious meeting, we have a tortured rendition of Moonlight Sonata. We have a visual expectation clashing with what we hear. This could be a poor understanding on the part of the filmmaker of what they've put together. However, I think with a clash that noticeable, it might indicate that they're doing something that we aren't quite sure of yet. Let's look at one more clip. If I see something like this, especially in conjunction with those previous examples of the music choices, I'm thinking this movie is something I just didn't know about. And indeed, Walker is not a straight-laced Western. It isn't deaf to its tonal choices. And in fact, it is a remarkable feat in balancing both tragedy and also humor in one of the funniest movies I've ever seen, in a very intentional satire. I enjoyed it so much in large part because I came to that moment where my expectations and the reality of the movie collided, and I was able to get on board with what it was doing. And to me, it was a great joy to be able to discover what the movie was while I was watching it. Let me show you a clip of a couple people who did not get on board with the film.
Our next film is called Walker. It's not a pleasure. It's being billed as a new film starring Marlee Matlin, the Oscar-winning deaf actress from Children of a Lesser God. But don't go to see this movie to see Marlee Matlin. She's dead by the end of the first reel, and so is the movie.
I knew I was in trouble in the first 90 seconds when they had a montage of the battle scene with blood spurting all over, and then you felt there's something wrong here. There's some kind of note here that is missing. And then about 20 minutes into the film, suddenly Bright Me figures out it's supposed to be a comedy.
Now let's be clear, this video is not an excuse to try to dunk on them, to act like I'm better than them, whatever. This is just what can happen if you're not able to get on the movie's wavelength, if you're not able to grapple with it and sort of win that struggle. If you're watching a movie that causes dissonance and you can't resolve it, then a lot of dissonance can be pretty painful. Happens to everyone. Happens to me sometimes. The real point of the video is to encourage people that if you're watching a movie that is causing this kind of dissonance, try to understand it. At least from my point of view, discovery is a lot of fun. It is a significant part of the movie watching experience. And I think it's great to be able to discover a whole new movie basically while you're watching it. We all want to watch good movies, and we all want to have a good time. And every now and then, one of those unpleasant experiences can be salvaged by taking a deep breath, resetting your expectations, and trying to view the movie on its terms. The movie is not made for you. It's not made for me. It is a piece of art that is made and made available for viewing. And I think that's important to consider. We've all got a context that we bring in with us. We've all got unavoidable expectations that will make for a unique viewing experience. But the film is not ours. And I think the most fair thing the viewer can do is to try to look at films on their terms, not on ours. Again, this does not mean that you have to like what the film is doing. You can dislike a movie and understand it perfectly. But I think it's only fair to try to experience the movie that is provided and not the one that you're bringing to the table. Walker is certainly not the only film that has caused dissonance in its presentation. For a more recent example, I think we could talk about Napoleon. Historical films always have a little bit of tension with them because they are based in real things, yet you're providing this fictionalized narrative that may or may not be tightly based on the real-life version. Napoleon himself is a fascinating historical figure, whether you're for him or against him, and the film inspired plenty of discussion about historicity. Then, of course, you have ideas like the mythologizing of a film, perpetuating ideas about real life that are false and the impact that has on the public's view of history. There are not zero legitimate gripes to have about historically inaccurate films. But the point is, Ridley Scott was not setting out to make a film about historical Napoleon. It doesn't matter if it's accurate or not. This is the film he was trying to make. He used the general idea of Napoleon to make his own Napoleon story using those broad strokes. That's his right as a filmmaker, and I think it's good practice as an audience to be able to recognize what the movie actually is. If you dislike the movie because of the direction it went, then so be it. But I think there's a significant difference between a movie being bad because it isn't a good exploration of real Napoleon and the movie being bad because it does things that doesn't construct a compelling film. Some movies have dissonances that are very easy to resolve, actually. From Dusk Till Dawn throws a major surprise at you, but you know what? It doesn't feel too different from the rest of the movie. Even if it completely changes story idea, and even if it kind of like halfway changes the genre, it still all feels roughly in line. It still feels like the same kind of movie. So even though it switches up, it doesn't actually feel like that big of a road bump, right? You don't get that many people complaining about the fact that it becomes a vampire movie. It is interesting that it does become a vampire movie, but very few people, at least as far as I'm aware, are put off by that dissonance. It's easy to resolve that one. But sometimes, at least to me, dissonances can be very hard and very interesting to try to resolve. I want to use the example of The Last Jedi. How many times have you heard the complaint about the film being, un-Star Wars-like, or people being disappointed with what it did to the universe, or something to that effect? It wasn't what they expected from a Star Wars movie. It's clear watching the film that it is an effort on the part of the film to be different and to really not be a normal Star Wars movie. There are plenty of aspects of the film that kind of reject things that have already been set up, that reject the mythos of some characters and the way things work in the universe. However, some of the interesting thing comes into me with the fact that this is a trilogy. This is the middle part of a trilogy that is part of an existing film canon. It is working with existing characters with established personalities for the most part. So some of that complaint might be warranted because it is twisting these characters in a way that might not seem fitting with the way they've been established in other films. So it could be working against the canon. So, perhaps this is something where it works better as a standalone instead of something that's attached to more Star Wars-y projects. But at the same time, this is also its own movie, and it has independent ideas and goals and such. So it should be viewed as an independent film to some degree. So this is an example to me where I think it's a hard distance to resolve because I kind of see why it would be beneficial to come in with a previously existing idea because of the franchise. And even though this movie is trying to do something different, maybe this isn't the right movie to do something that different. You get the gist of it. And the goal with bringing this movie up is to illustrate that, of course, art is never going to be black and white. There will never be a correct way to receive any film, but, of course, I'm choosing this one because it's difficult in my mind to resolve. But people can put in, all the effort they want, have a good process, think about things well, and still come out with completely opposite opinions. It's just the way it goes. And that's the beauty of art. The reflection and discussion it inspires and the things it makes us feel, even if they're negative, can really be beautiful things. The important thing to me is not the final opinion. It's not whether you have the right opinion or not. It's the engagement. Hundreds of thousands of people, work to bring this film to the screen, any film to the screen probably. And I think it's only fair to try to understand what they were trying to accomplish rather than trying to put our own ideas first. Our ideas are always going to bleed into the way we view a movie, but I am a big fan of at least trying to understand what the movie is supposed to be.